The Villani homeworld burned. From her place on the observation deck of the orbital station, Ambassador Tella watched as fire spread across the northern continent. The orange glow was visible even from space, her 4 eyes filled with tears that floated away in the low gravity. "How many?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Her assistant, a young Villani named Koro, checked his data tablet with shaking hands. 14 million in the first wave of attacks. The Krath are not taking prisoners. Tella closed her eyes. The Villani were a peaceful species. They had no military. They had no weapons. For 3,000 years, they had lived in harmony with the galaxy. They were scientists, artists, and healers. They had helped cure diseases on 100 worlds. They had shared their technology freely with anyone who asked. And now the Krath Empire had decided they wanted the Villani homeworld for themselves. The Krath were conquerors. They moved from system to system, taking whatever they wanted. Their ships were massive and covered in weapons. Their soldiers were brutal and showed no mercy. The Galactic Council had tried to stop them many times, but the Krath were too strong. Every species that had fought them had lost. "The Council?" Tella asked. Koro shook his head. "They send their sympathy. But no ships. No soldiers. The Fenari say they cannot spare any forces. The Droth claim they are too far away. The Mikari." He paused. "The Mikari have closed their borders completely." Tella felt anger rise in her chest. She had spent 50 years working for the Council. She had believed in their promise of mutual protection. She had believed that when one species was in danger, the others would help. She had been a fool. "There must be someone," she said. "Someone willing to stand against the Krath." Koro was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice so soft that Tella almost did not hear him. "There is one species we have not contacted." Tella turned to look at him. "Who?" "The humans. The Deathworlders." A cold feeling spread through Tella's body. She had heard stories about the humans. Everyone had. They came from a world called Earth, a planet so dangerous that most species could not survive there for even an hour. The gravity was crushing. The air was thick with oxygen, a gas that was poison to many species. The planet had massive storms, extreme temperatures, and predators everywhere. And the humans had evolved to survive all of it. They had only been part of galactic society for 30 years. They were considered newcomers, primitives, barely worth noticing. They had a small territory on the edge of explored space. They traded with a few species, but mostly kept to themselves. "The humans have no fleet," Tella said. "They have maybe 50 ships. What could they do against the Krath?" I do not know," Koro admitted. "But they are the only ones we have not asked." "And, Ambassador, the stories say." "The stories say what?" Koro looked uncomfortable. "The stories say that humans are warriors. That they have been fighting wars on their planet for their entire history. That violence is in their blood." Tella felt sick. She did not want warriors. She did not want violence. But as she watched another city burn on the surface below, she realized that she had no choice. "Send the message," she said. "Tell them everything. Tell them we are dying. Tell them we will give them anything they want if they help us." Koro nodded and hurried away to the communication center. Tella stayed at the window. She watched the Krath ships move across the sky like dark shadows. There were 800 of them, each one bristling with weapons. They were taking their time, enjoying the destruction. They knew that no one was coming to stop them. 3 hours passed. Tella did not move from the window. She watched her world die, piece by piece. Then Koro came running back. His eyes were wide, and he was breathing hard. "Ambassador, we have a response." Tella spun around. "From the humans?" "So quickly?" "Yes, they say." Koro looked at his tablet, then looked up at Tella with confusion on his face. "They say they are already on their way. They say they left as soon as they heard about the Krath invasion." "Left? Left from where? How did they know?" "I do not understand it either, Ambassador. But there is more. Koro swallowed. They say we should tell our people to stay away from the Krath ships. They say to find shelter underground if possible. They say. He paused again. What? What do they say? They say to hold on, help is coming, and they say. Koro's voice dropped to a whisper. They say the Krath have made a terrible mistake. Tella did not know what to think. The humans were coming? With what? Their 50 old ships against 800 Krath warships? It was madness. But something in the message made her heart beat faster. Something in those words, the Krath have made a terrible mistake, sent a shiver down her spine. She looked back out the window. On the dark side of the planet, she could see the lights of the Krath fleet. They were moving toward the capital city now. Millions more would die in the next few hours. How long until the humans arrive? She asked. They did not say exactly. But Ambassador, there is one more thing. What? Koro's hands were shaking so badly that he almost dropped his tablet. I checked our long-range sensors. I wanted to see if I could find their ships. And I found them. Koro's voice cracked. Ambassador, I found them. How many ships? Koro looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. It was fear and hope mixed together in a way that made no sense. 3,000, he said. 3,000 warships. And Ambassador, they are moving faster than any ships I have ever seen. They will be here in less than 6 hours. Tella felt the world shift beneath her feet. 3,000 ships? The humans were supposed to have 50. Where had 3,000 warships come from? She thought about all the reports she had read about the humans. Primitive, newcomers, barely spaceworthy, a minor species not worth watching. For the first time, Tella wondered if those reports had been wrong. For the first time, she wondered if everyone had been looking at the humans and seeing exactly what the humans wanted them to see. She turned back to the window and watched the Krath ships continue their attack. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they were the most powerful force in this system. In 6 hours, they would learn the truth. In 6 hours, the Deathworlders would arrive. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn and read the message from the Villani for the 3rd time. Her face showed no emotion. But inside, her blood was boiling. 14 million dead already, she said quietly. And the Krath are just getting started. Captain Hana stepped up beside her. She was younger than Yuna by 20 years, but her eyes held the same cold fire. Orders? Admiral? Yuna turned to look at the massive display screen that covered the front wall of the bridge. It showed the position of every ship in the human fleet, 3,000 warships, hidden in the darkness between stars where no one ever looked. They had been waiting for 30 years. Watching, preparing. Send the word to all fleet commanders, Yuna said. We move now. Full speed to the Villani system. Hana nodded and began sending the orders. Around them, the bridge crew worked in perfect silence. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Fleet Commander Tay received the order on his ship, the Iron Wolf. He smiled when he read it. Not a happy smile. A hunter's smile. Finally, he said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Day, 30 years of hiding, 30 years of pretending to be weak. It ends today. Day checked his console. All ships in our section report ready, Commander. Weapons are hot. Shields are at maximum. Good. Tay looked around at his crew. They were young, most of them. They had never seen real combat, but they had trained harder than any soldiers in human history. Listen carefully. The Krath think we are primitives. They think we have 50 old ships and no real military. That is exactly what we wanted them to think. The crew listened in silence. For 30 years, humanity has been playing a game. We let the galaxy see our traders and our scientists. We showed them a few old ships. We acted like newcomers who were still learning about space travel. Tay paused. We lied. He pressed a button, and an image appeared on the screen. It showed the true size of the human fleet. 3,000 of the most advanced warships ever built. Weapons that no other species had ever seen. engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. The Krath have killed 14 million innocent people, Tay continued. They think no one will stop them. They think they are the strongest force in the galaxy. His voice grew harder. They are wrong. And today, we will teach them just how wrong they are. A cheer went up from the crew. Tay raised his hand for silence. But remember this. We are not going there for revenge. We are going there to save lives. The Villani asked for help, and we will give it. We will destroy the Krath fleet, but we will not become monsters ourselves. We fight with honor. We protect the innocent. That is what makes us human. The crew nodded. They understood. On another ship, the Silver Star, engineer Nari was running final checks on the weapon systems. She was small for a human, but her hands moved across the controls with incredible speed. Power levels are at 112%, she reported to her captain. The new reactors are performing better than expected. Captain June smiled. Good work, Nari. Those reactors might save a lot of lives today. Nari nodded, but her face was serious. Captain, I have a question. Ask it. Why did we hide for so long? If we have all this power, why did we let the Krath hurt so many species? We could have stopped them years ago. June was quiet for a moment. It was a fair question, and it deserved an honest answer. We were not ready, he said finally. When we first came to the galaxy, we made a choice. We could show everyone our true strength and become a target. Or we could hide and watch and learn. We chose to hide, but people died because we hid. Yes. And that weight sits on all of us. June looked out at the stars. But if we had revealed ourselves too soon, we might have failed. The Krath might have destroyed us before we were ready. And then who would stop them? Nari thought about this. So we waited until we were sure we could win. We waited until we were sure we could protect everyone who needed protecting. Not just the Villani. Everyone. June put a hand on her shoulder. After today, the galaxy will know the truth about humanity, and they will know that whenever innocent people are in danger, we will come. Back on the flagship, Admiral Yuna watched the fleet move into formation. 3,000 ships, each one carrying hundreds of soldiers and crew members, all of them ready to fight and die for people they had never met. This was what it meant to be human. Commander Juan contacted her from his position at the front of the fleet. Admiral, we are approaching the jump point. All ships report ready. Any sign that the Krath know we are coming? None. Their attention is entirely on the Villani planet. They have no idea. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. Good. Let us keep it that way until the last possible moment. She opened a channel to all ships. Her voice went out to over 1 million human soldiers and crew members. This is Admiral Yuna. In a few hours, we will arrive at the Villani system. We will face the Krath Empire in battle. Many of you have never seen real combat. Some of you are afraid. That is okay. Fear is natural. She paused, letting her words sink in. But remember why we are going. 14 million people have already died. Millions more will die if we do not stop the Krath. These are not our people. They are not our species. But they asked for help, and we answered. On every ship, soldiers and crew members listened. The galaxy thinks they know what humans are. They think we are primitive. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid of the Krath like everyone else. Yuna's voice grew stronger. Today, we show them the truth. Today, we show them what Deathworlders really are. She stood straight and tall on her bridge. We are humanity. We do not hide from bullies. We do not ignore the cries of the innocent. We do not let evil win because fighting is hard. Her voice rang out across the fleet. Today, the Krath will learn why Earth is called a death world. Not because it creates victims. Because it creates warriors who protect the weak. The fleet began to move faster. The stars stretched into lines as the ships accelerated toward the Villani system. All ships, Yuna commanded, jump. And 3,000 human warships vanished into hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The Krath commander, Overlord Vrax, watched the Villani capital city burn with satisfaction. His fleet had destroyed 40% of the planet's surface in just 18 hours. By tomorrow, there would be nothing left but ash and bones. "Report," he demanded. His tactical officer checked his screens. "Resistance is minimal. The Volani have no military ships remaining. Ground forces are scattered and weak. Estimated time to complete conquest, 12 hours. Vrax made a sound of pleasure. This was almost too easy. The Volani had been so foolish, believing that peace could protect them. They had trusted the Galactic Council to save them, and as always, the Council had done nothing. No one ever stood against the Krath. No one dared. "Sir," another officer called out. "We are detecting unusual readings at the edge of the system." Vrax did not look concerned. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures. Many of them, they appear to be." The officer stopped. His face went pale. "Well? What are they?" "Ships, Overlord. Many ships. They just came out of hyperspace." Vrax finally turned to look at the tactical display. What he saw made his blood run cold. 3,000 ships, 3,000 warships, arranged in perfect battle formation. And they were moving toward the Volani planet at incredible speed. "That is impossible," Vrax whispered. "No fleet in the galaxy is that large." "Who are they?" The officer checked his readings again and again, hoping for a mistake. There was no mistake. "They appear to be human ships, Overlord." "Human?" Vrax laughed. But there was no humor in it. "The humans have 50 ships at most. Old ships. Weak ships. This must be an error." "It is not an error, sir. I have confirmed the readings 5 times. These are human vessels, over 3,000 of them." On the orbital station, Ambassador Tella stared at her own display screens with tears running down her face. They had come. The humans had actually come. 3,047 ships. Koro reported, his voice shaking with emotion. "Ambassador, I have never seen anything like it. Their ships are beautiful and terrifying." Tella looked at the images of the human fleet. The ships were sleek and dark, covered in angles that seemed designed to deflect weapons fire. They moved in perfect formation, like a single organism with thousands of parts. "They are here," she whispered. "They actually came." A communication signal flashed on her console. She accepted it with trembling hands. A human face appeared on the screen. It was a woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a military uniform covered in medals. "Ambassador Tella," the woman said. "I am Admiral Yuna of the United Earth Fleet. We received your message. We are here to help." Tella could not speak. She tried, but the words would not come. After everything, after watching her world burn for hours, hope was almost too much to bear. Admiral Yuna seemed to understand. Her face softened slightly. "I know you have been through a terrible time. But it is over now. The Krath will not harm your people anymore." "How?" Tella finally managed to ask. "There are 800 of them. Even with your numbers." "Watch," Yuna said simply, "and tell your people to stay away from the Krath ships. What happens next will not be safe for anyone nearby." The communication ended. Tella turned back to the window and watched. On the Krath flagship, Overlord Vrax was screaming orders. "All ships, form defensive positions, prepare for battle," but his fleet was slow to respond. They had been spread out across the system, attacking different targets. It would take time to gather them together. The humans did not give them time. Lieutenant Day, aboard the Iron Wolf, watched his targeting display with cold focus. "Commander Tay, all weapons are locked on enemy vessels. Awaiting your order." Commander Tay smiled that hunter's smile again. "Open a channel to the Krath fleet. All frequencies." Day pressed the controls. "Channel open, Commander." Tay leaned forward and spoke clearly. "Attention, Krath vessels. This is Commander Tay of the United Earth Fleet. You are ordered to power down your weapons and surrender immediately. You have murdered millions of innocent people. You will face justice for your crimes." There was silence for a moment. Then Overlord Vrax's voice came back, filled with anger and disbelief. You dare to threaten the Krath Empire? We are the most powerful force in the galaxy. Your primitive species is nothing to us. We will destroy you and add your bones to the pile. Tay's expression did not change. That is your answer? That is my promise, human. When I am done with the Villani, I will come for your pathetic homeworld. I will burn your cities and enslave your children. I will teach you what happens to those who challenge the Krath. Tay nodded slowly. I understand. Admiral Yuna, did you hear that? Yuna's voice came through the communication system. I heard, Commander. All ships, you are authorized to engage. Show them what Deathworlders can do. Across the human fleet, weapon systems powered up. 3,000 ships aimed their guns at the scattered Krath vessels. And then, as one, they fired. The first wave of weapons was something the galaxy had never seen. Beams of focused energy that cut through Krath shields like paper. Missiles that moved so fast that defensive systems could not track them. Electronic attacks that shut down enemy computers in seconds. Krath ships began to explode. 1, then 10, then 50. The darkness of space filled with fire and debris. Overlord Vrax stared at his tactical display in horror. He had expected a battle. He had expected to lose some ships but ultimately win through superior numbers and experience. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Fall back, he screamed. All ships, retreat. But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human fleet had spread out, surrounding the Krath from all sides. Every escape route was blocked. Every attempt to run was met with devastating firepower. Commander Wan led his section of the fleet against the largest concentration of Krath ships. Keep formation tight. Do not let any of them escape. His ships moved with perfect coordination, cutting off fleeing Krath vessels and destroying them with surgical precision. On the Silver Star, Engineer Nari watched the power levels carefully. Reactors are stable, Captain. We can maintain fire for another 6 hours at this rate. Captain June nodded. Let us hope we do not need 6 hours. He was right. They did not need 6 hours. They did not even need 1. 11 minutes after the first shot was fired, the battle was over. Of the 800 Krath warships, 783 had been destroyed. The remaining 17 had surrendered and powered down their weapons. Overlord Vrax was among the survivors. He sat on his damaged bridge, staring at the images of the destroyed fleet. His mighty armada, the terror of 100 worlds, had been eliminated in less time than it took to eat a meal. Overlord Vrax, Admiral Yuna's voice came through his communication system. You are now a prisoner of the United Earth Fleet. You will be taken to face trial for your crimes against the Villani people and others. Your empire's reign of terror is over. Vrax said nothing. There was nothing to say. On the orbital station, Ambassador Tella watched the last Krath ship surrender. Around her, other Villani were crying and hugging each other. Some were on their knees, praying to gods they had stopped believing in. 11 minutes, Koro said in wonder. They destroyed 800 ships in 11 minutes. Tella nodded slowly. She was thinking about all the reports she had read about humans. Primitive. Weak. Not worth watching. Those reports had been written by species who saw what they wanted to see. They had looked at Earth and seen a dangerous planet. They had looked at humans and seen survivors of that planet. They had missed the truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were the apex predators of a death world. And today, the galaxy had finally seen what that meant. The silence after the battle was almost as shocking as the battle itself. Ambassador Tella stood at the window of the orbital station, staring at the field of debris that had once been the mighty Krath fleet. Pieces of destroyed ships floated through space, catching the light of the Villani sun. They did it, she whispered. They actually did it. Koro was working at his console, trying to make sense of the sensor data. Ambassador, I am receiving communications from the human fleet. Admiral Yuna wishes to speak with you. Put her through. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but satisfied. Ambassador Tella, The Krath fleet has been neutralized. Your system is secure. Thank you, Tella said. The words seemed small, inadequate. How did you thank someone for saving your entire species? We will never be able to repay what you have done. Yuna shook her head. You do not need to repay us. We came because it was the right thing to do. She paused. However, we have a problem. Your planet has suffered severe damage. Millions of your people need help. We would like to assist with rescue and recovery efforts, if you will allow it. Tella felt fresh tears forming in her eyes. You would help us rebuild? We will do whatever you need. I am sending down medical teams, engineers, and emergency supplies. My people are ready to work. Within hours, the first human shuttles began landing on the Villani homeworld. They touched down in the ruins of destroyed cities, in fields still smoking from Krath weapons, in areas where survivors were trapped under collapsed buildings. Dr. Sue was among the first medical officers on the ground. She stepped out of her shuttle into chaos. Villani survivors were everywhere, many of them injured, all of them terrified. When they saw the human shuttle, some of them screamed and tried to run. They are afraid of us, her assistant, Nurse J, said quietly. Dr. Sue nodded. Can you blame them? They just watched us destroy 800 ships in 11 minutes. They do not know if we are here to help or to conquer. She took a deep breath and walked toward the nearest group of survivors. They were huddled together, a family with 3 small children. The parents tried to shield their children with their bodies. Dr. Sue stopped a safe distance away and knelt down, making herself smaller. She held up her hands to show she had no weapons. I am a doctor, she said slowly, clearly. I am here to help. May I check if anyone is hurt? The Villani parents looked at each other. The father had a deep cut on his arm that was bleeding badly. After a long moment, he nodded. Dr. Sue approached carefully and began treating his wound. The Villani watched her work with wide eyes. She was gentle and efficient, and soon the bleeding had stopped. Thank you, the father whispered. Dr. Sue smiled. You are welcome. Now, let me check the children. All across the planet, similar scenes were happening. Human soldiers who had fought like demons in space were now digging through rubble to rescue trapped survivors. Human engineers were setting up emergency power generators and water purification systems. Human medics were treating wounds and delivering babies, and comforting the dying. Commander Juan led a team into the ruins of the capital city. The destruction was overwhelming. Buildings had collapsed. Streets were filled with debris. Bodies lay everywhere. Keep searching, Juan ordered his team. There may still be survivors. They worked for hours, using scanners to detect life signs beneath the rubble. Every time they found someone alive, they worked carefully to dig them out. Every time they found a body, they treated it with respect. A young Villani girl was trapped in what had been a school. Her leg was broken, and she was crying for her parents. Juan crawled through the debris to reach her. It is okay, he said softly. I am going to get you out. The girl looked at him with terrified eyes. Are you a human? Yes. My teacher said humans are dangerous. She said your planet is full of monsters. Juan smiled gently. Your teacher was partly right. Our planet is dangerous. But that danger made us strong. And now we use that strength to protect people like you. He carefully lifted the girl and carried her out of the ruins. A medical team was waiting to take her to safety. On the orbital station, Admiral Yuna was meeting with the Galactic Council. The council members had finally arrived, hours after the battle was over. They claimed they had come as quickly as they could. Yuna did not believe them, but she kept her face neutral. Admiral, the council speaker said, we are grateful for your assistance in this matter. However, we must ask, where did this fleet come from? Our records indicate that humanity has fewer than 100 space vessels. Your records are out of date, Yuna replied calmly. But 3,000 warships? The resources required to build such a fleet. It should have taken centuries. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. We are Deathworlders, council speaker. We do not have centuries. On Earth, we learn to move quickly because slow creatures get eaten. She paused. But the real answer is that we have been preparing for 30 years. We saw how the galaxy worked. We saw how the Krath and others prey on the weak. And we decided that when the time came, we would be ready. Ready for what? To change things. The council members looked at each other nervously. This was not the primitive, harmless humanity they had ignored for 3 decades. What are your intentions? Another council member asked. Do you plan to replace the Krath? Create your own empire? Yuna shook her head. We have no interest in empires. We have no desire to rule over other species. What we want is much simpler. She looked around at all of them. We want a galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of preying on them. We want a galaxy where species like the Vellani can live in peace without fearing conquest. We want a galaxy where calls for help are answered. That is a noble goal, the speaker said carefully. But how do you plan to achieve it? By making it clear that there are consequences for cruelty. The Krath thought they could murder millions of innocent people because no one would stop them. They were wrong. Yuna's voice hardened. From now on, any species that attacks civilians, any species that preys on the defenseless, will have to deal with us. That sounds like a threat, Admiral. It is a promise, Council Speaker. A promise to every innocent person in this galaxy that they are not alone. That someone will come when they call for help. She stood up. Now, if you will excuse me, I have work to do. There are still survivors who need rescuing on the surface. She left the council chamber without looking back. On the surface, the rescue work continued through the night. Human soldiers and Vellani survivors worked side by side, pulling people from the wreckage. Something was changing. The fear the Vellani had felt was slowly being replaced by something else. Hope. A Vellani elder approached Commander Tay as he was coordinating rescue efforts. Commander, I must ask. Why did you come? We are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer you. Why did humanity risk so much to save us? Tay thought about the question. It was one he had asked himself many times. Because on Earth, he finally said, we learned something important. We learned that the worst thing in the world is not to suffer yourself. The worst thing is to see someone else suffering and do nothing. He looked up at the stars. The galaxy is a dangerous place. But it does not have to be a cruel place. Not if we refuse to let it be. The elder was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect. We will never forget what humanity has done, he said. And we will tell the story to our children and our children's children. The story of the day the Deathworlders came, with overwhelming force, and used it to protect the innocent. Tay returned the bow. That is all we could ever ask. 1 month after the battle, the Vellani homeworld was slowly healing. The fires had been put out. The rubble had been cleared. New shelters were being built for those who had lost their homes. And everywhere, humans and Vellani were working together. Ambassador Tella stood on a platform overlooking the construction of a new medical center. Human engineers were showing Vellani workers how to use advanced building equipment. Children were playing nearby, laughing for the first time since the invasion began. It is strange, she said to Admiral Yuna, who stood beside her. A month ago, we were dying. Now, we have hope again. Yuna nodded. Your people are strong, Ambassador. They have been through something terrible. But they are rebuilding. That takes courage. We could not have done it without you. Without humanity. Tella turned to look at the Admiral. I have been thinking about what you said to the Council. About wanting a galaxy where the strong protect the weak. Do you really believe that is possible? I believe it is necessary, Yuna replied. For too long, the galaxy has operated on one principle. The strong take what they want, and the weak suffer. That is how the Krath grew powerful. That is how dozens of species were conquered or destroyed, but it does not have to be that way. The Council seems nervous about your plans. Yuna smiled slightly. The Council has been comfortable with the old way of doing things. They made deals with the Krath and other empires because it was easier than fighting. They closed their borders and protected themselves while others burned. Her smile faded. That comfort is over now. In the capital city, a trial was taking place. Overlord Vrax and the other surviving Kroth officers stood before a galactic court. For the first time in history, members of the Kroth Empire were being held accountable for their crimes. Lieutenant Day watched the proceedings from the back of the courtroom. He had been assigned to help with security, but he was also a witness. He had seen what the Kroth had done to the Villani planet. The court heard testimony from survivors. They heard about families torn apart, cities destroyed, millions killed for no reason except greed. They heard about the Kroth's cruelty and their contempt for other species, and they heard about the human response. A Villani child, the same girl that Commander Juan had rescued from the school, was brought forward to give testimony. She spoke in a small voice about being trapped, about thinking she was going to die. Then the human came, she said. He was big and scary at first, but he was so gentle. He promised to save me, and he did. Day felt something tighten in his chest. This was why they had come. This was why they had fought. Not for glory or power, but for that little girl and millions like her. The verdict came after 3 days of testimony. Vrax and his officers were found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. They would spend the rest of their lives in a maximum security prison, far from anyone they could hurt. As Vrax was led away, he looked at the human guards with hate in his eyes. "This is not over," he hissed. "The Kroth Empire will have its revenge." One of the guards, a young woman named Mira, just smiled. "The Kroth Empire does not exist anymore. While you were being tried here, our fleet visited your homeworld. We gave your people a choice: peace or the same fate as your fleet. They chose peace." Vrax's face went pale. He was led away in silence. News of the trial spread across the galaxy. Species who had lived in fear of the Kroth for generations watched in amazement. The unstoppable conquerors had been stopped. The unbeatable warriors had been beaten, and the ones who had done it were the humans, the species everyone had dismissed as primitive newcomers. Messages began arriving at Earth from across the galaxy. Some were requests for protection. Others were offers of alliance. Still others were simply expressions of thanks from species the Kroth had hurt. Captain June read through some of these messages on the bridge of the Silver Star. "There are over 10,000 requests for humanitarian assistance," he reported to Admiral Yuna. "Species who have been oppressed by various empires are asking for our help." "We cannot help everyone at once," Yuna said thoughtfully. "But we can start. Organize the requests by urgency. The most desperate cases get help first. Some of the council members are complaining that we are moving too fast. They say we are disrupting the balance of power." Yuna looked at the star map on her display. So many worlds, so many species, so many people who needed help. "The old balance of power meant that the strong crushed the weak," she said. "If disrupting that balance saves lives, then we will disrupt it gladly." On the Villani homeworld, a ceremony was being held. Ambassador Tella had insisted on it. She wanted the galaxy to see what the humans had done. Thousands of Villani had gathered in the central square of the rebuilt capital. Human soldiers and crew members stood among them: Commander Tay, Captain Hana, Engineer Nari, Dr. Su, and many others. They looked uncomfortable with all the attention, but they stayed. Tella stepped up to a microphone. Her voice was broadcast across the planet and to listening stations throughout the galaxy. "1 month ago, my people faced extinction. The Kroth came with 800 warships and began to destroy everything we had built over 3,000 years. We called for help, but no one answered." She paused. "No one except the humans." She gestured to the human contingent. "These Deathworlders came from the other side of the galaxy. They had no obligation to help us. We had nothing to offer them. But they came anyway. They came with 3,000 ships. They came with overwhelming force, and they used that force not to conquer, but to protect." The crowd was completely silent, listening to every word. "I have spent my life in diplomacy. I have heard many speeches and many promises. But I have never seen anything like what the humans have done. They have shown us that strength does not have to mean cruelty. That power does not have to mean oppression. They have shown us a different way. She turned to face Admiral Yuna directly. On behalf of the Villani people, I offer you our eternal friendship. Our children will learn about what you did here. Our historians will record your names. And whenever humanity needs our help in return, we will be there. Yuna stepped forward and clasped Tella's hand. Ambassador, we do not ask for repayment. But friendship is always welcome. Together, perhaps we can build the kind of galaxy we all want to live in. A cheer rose from the crowd. Villani and humans alike joined in, their voices mixing together. Later that night, Commander Tay sat alone on a hill overlooking the capital. The city was lit up below, full of life and activity. Hard to believe that a month ago, it had been burning. Captain Hana found him there. Mind if I join you? Tay shook his head, and she sat down beside him. Big day, she said. Big month. Big year. Big everything. Tay looked up at the stars. When I joined the fleet, they told me we were preparing for something important, but I never imagined it would be like this. Regrets? No, not a single one. He pointed at the city. Look at them down there. A month ago, they were dying. Now they are rebuilding, celebrating, hoping. We did that. We gave them that chance. Hana nodded. And it is just the beginning. There are other species out there who need help. Other empires who need to be stopped. Other battles to fight. I know, Tay smiled, and I cannot wait. Hana laughed softly. You really are a Deathworlder, you know that? We all are. And that is our gift to the galaxy. He stood up and offered her his hand. Come on. There is a party down there. And I think we have earned a little celebration. She took his hand and stood. Together, they walked down the hill toward the City of Lights. Behind them, the stars stretched across the sky, countless and ancient. Somewhere out there, other species were watching and wondering. They had seen what the humans could do. They had seen the Deathworlders arrive with overwhelming force. And for the first time in a very long time, they were not afraid. They were hopeful, because they knew that when they called for help, someone would answer. Humanity was watching over the galaxy now. And that made all the difference.